Ideas, businesses, and startups, it's so much about experiences, human stories, culture, becoming a founder, stepping out of that zone. It's about the story of clarity, courage, and the chaos of building something that matters in a world that moves so fast, speaks so many languages, and quite recently, the language of the AI. So, this is Founders Across Borders, and we are grateful to feature an amazing founder with us, Mr. Rex Loyer. He has been an entrepreneur and the clarity master. He achieved financial freedom when at the age of 22 by having his net worth at $1 million, which is an amazing achievement. He is now financially independent. At the age of 25, he is building a new venture called as Focus Founders, which helps entrepreneurs keep focus as a pivot and they excel and scale their businesses. So it's a pleasure to have you with us, Rex, today. Thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here.
I would love to know, since you initially started your journey, how was it when you knew that, okay, I want to be financially independent or I want to do something of my own? What was the main motivation for you to get going?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I could talk for hours about that. I'd say it's primarily the desire to grow and achieve. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think that that was coming from the best place when I started my journey. I wanted to make a lot of money. I felt like I needed to have an impact. These are all kind of ideas that were put on to me. I was only later over time that as I grew by necessity to grow a successful business, that I actually found a way to motivate myself from more of a altruistic point of view. Like at the beginning, I was 18, I was scared, like I needed to make money and I really wanted to be respected and loved.
Wow, that's actually interesting. So, when you just had these three areas that you had to work on, what was the first thing that you picked in order to start your path towards the financial freedom?
That's great. That's a great question. I have built two successful companies in my time, but I have also failed at very, very, very many companies. And I'm embarrassed to say that some of these quote unquote companies, I only made like a few $100s at, despite working for months and months sometimes. So one of the very first things I did was landscaping, and then I got into digital marketing and drop shipping, and yeah, those were a few of the first kind of initial companies I tried to create, and failed at before I had the skill set I needed to be successful.
So, what was the starting point, and then how did you build across all of that?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I failed a bunch. Like I built two successful companies, but every company I created before that ultimately failed. And I'm ashamed, or not really ashamed to say, but like not proud to say that some of these companies only made a few $100s despite me spending months on them. So some examples of that were a 3D real estate scanning business I had, did Google Ads management for companies for a brief period of time, and I had a remodeling company that I was supporting and building. Yeah, that was my start, and they all ultimately failed because I didn't have the skills that I needed to succeed yet.
Wow. So, do you think that you built on the skills or you shifted the industry wherein you had an unfair advantage?
No, I definitely think it was the skills. I firmly believe that people can be successful at anything. In fact, there are many people that I've met in my life who are far more financially successful than I am. I built brilliant companies doing things that they're not passionate about, like plumbing or, an electrician company or something like that. I think ultimately the skills of like persistence and humility and learning and pivoting and honing in on what isn't working is the most valuable thing that people need to learn.
I love how you're talking about experimenting and hypothesis, which also brings me to understand so many people are freezing in paralysis, like analysis paralysis, because they want to gain a clarity or find the purpose before, like experimenting. So, what do you think? Can purpose be found or purpose should be known before you do something?
That's a great question. I want to kind of talk about the thing you were mentioning a little bit earlier about the analysis paralysis, and then go into answering your question if that's okay.
Please go ahead.
Cool. I think people have analysis paralysis because they're putting a amount of importance on a decision that doesn't actually make sense. So for example, if I'm trying to find my passion that I'm convinced I will be doing for the rest of my life, that's a massive decision. But if we instead look at it as an experiment, like, oh, I'm going to commit to this thing for the next 6 months, all of a sudden I don't need to make the perfect decision. I can just make a good enough decision. Does that make sense?
It actually does. But then, how to navigate? I mean, most of the people I meet or are founders in becoming, or even have multiple businesses, have this problem at the very beginning, wherein they are like, what to decide, what not to. And since you work with focus, I'd love to know your insights on this.
Oh, totally. My brain isn't perfect. I forgot the second half of the question. So thank you so much for repeating that for me. I really do think it's just a matter of taking forward action. In my life, all the things I'm passionate about now, for the most part, I was not passionate about when I was 5 years old or even 18 years old. So it's not like I was born with my interest and focus, that I was born with my skill to articulate things relatively clearly. So I definitely have a belief that people, in the context of making a temporary experimental decision, right? So locking something in for 6 months so they can focus and be consistent. A, shouldn't put too much weight on it, and B, should just start learning a skill. Because in my life, anything that I've gotten good at, I've found a lot of enjoyment in it. I think that that's a key piece that's missing. I think that primarily passion is created instead of found.
I love that. It's created instead of found, is because we really want to know it all, like know the destinations because like before we've even traveled that path. And I love how you addressed on creating and then finding the passion on that. So
Absolutely.
that's to highlight. But also to understand, as you mentioned, like you need to be really skilled at it. What are the top three skills that you feel someone should know or are really required to go ahead?
Yeah. So there's the idea of skills, which is like, hey, I'm really good at using my phone, or I'm really good at drinking water. Like, that's a really specific skill. But then there's meta skills.
Hmm.
So I think that those are the most important. And when I say meta skills, I mean the skills that allow me to learn the skills, the specific skills that I would need. So a really good example of one of those is humility, because I think that if somebody is not willing to accurately look at data, and a lot of times that data is going to say, you suck at this thing at the beginning, I don't believe that anybody is going to be able to get good at any skill. The second skill I think is really, really important is the skill of emotional intelligence or emotional awareness.
Hmm.
And that has to do with the first one because it allows emotional fortitude and it allows people to take care of themselves long enough to face harsh feedback and get better. And then I'd say the third is just stubborn persistence. Basically, I believe that if somebody doesn't quit with a business and they're able to learn over time, they're guaranteed to be successful. But what I see a lot of people do is they don't learn and iterate properly in a business, or they quit the business. So I would say that those are probably the top three.
Wow. That's amazing that you touched the exact humane part of it. Most of us focus on the hard skills like you need to learn AI, you need to learn automation, you need to be good at digital marketing and do this and do that. But you've touched on the three fundamentals, which can help you do anything if you have the basics correct, which is
Absolutely.
which is so important. So, right now, when you're building the new venture Focus Founders, how did you come to this idea that, okay, I need to like, I've done other things and now this is the current venture that I want to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and it's actually a large part of the core philosophy of Focus Founders, which is creating a company day by day, day to day, that I actually enjoy. And that's what one of the things we support our clients doing. And it's a very tactical reason. It's not like a pie in the sky, oh, you should do what you love. As I mentioned before, the third and maybe the most important skill is to not quit the thing.
Hmm.
To not quit something, I need to be able to find enjoyment, fulfillment, growth, alignment, like one of those versions of that in the thing. And so when building this company, I asked, what am I good at and what would I enjoy doing? And so this, in conjunction with finding my co-founder Bill, is what precipitated in the creation of Focus Founder.
It's I think that's 50% of the ikigai part. Like find what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what can you be paid for, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it.
And this skill is developed over time, or you feel that this is something that just comes in a moment, or it takes a lot of hard trials to make it there.
Yeah, so the reason why I just simplified it down to two parts of the kagai, if I'm pronouncing that right, ikagi, is because I think a lot of what the world needs and what people are willing to pay for coincides with being really, really good at a skill. So in my instance, I was looking for how to monetize the skill set that I built over the course of my entire life. So focus is something that I struggled with initially. And it's the reason why a lot of my initial businesses, like I talked about, failed because I quit, because I couldn't focus on the right things, because I wasn't seeing progress in my business. So in a sense, and I think my co-founder Bill would say the exact same thing, focus founders is us. Our ability to learn how to focus, how to communicate, how to develop systems, how to express very clearly and articulately what people need to succeed in work has been born out of our own experience. So as opposed to like how long did it take, it's like it's my entire life. It's taken me all 25 years to get here, baby.
It's like the quarter life that you have lived. This is the sum of all the things that you have done, tried, tested, and presenting it to the world now.
Correct. And that's also why I'm very good at what I do and it's very valuable, is because I have spent, they talk about 10,000 hours. I've spent easily 10,000 hours thinking about psychology, understanding the brain, and finding what works for myself and other entrepreneurs because I love it.
So, when you try to understand focus as the key concept, so I would like to merge focus and quitting. There would be times when the solution that you're trying to preach or you're trying to do, it might be a voice in the black hole. Like nobody wants what you're doing. So maybe you are not focused as well, but also that the other person does not need it. So the market does not need it, but you're still building it. So, what would you recommend to that person? Do you still think focus is a problem, or market is a problem, or they're quitting? Like, how do you identify in this complex situation?
Yeah, so I definitely acknowledge that there are certain situations. I think Steve Jobs is an example where people typically talk about it, where the market didn't know that they needed a smartphone, but he created it anyway. I'd say that that is a much harder way to build business, and it also doesn't have a lot of positive feedback because until the thing is completely built, there's no way of knowing if it will be successful or make money. So I'm actually not, I know what I know and I know what I do not know. I'm more of an expert on building a business in a reliable, fun way. And I'd say like probably 95% of the way businesses are built, which is finding some sort of traction and validation, even if it's small, and building upon that, as opposed to spending thousands and thousands of hours creating something that may or may not work or be accepted by the marketplace. Does that make sense?
It does. And while you're finding traction, like how to understand this is a problem that you want to solve. Like so many online business gurus talk about that solve, like pick the problem that rich people have, or like in volumes when poor people have, but don't deal in the middle and things like that. So, how to identify that thing that, okay, this might work, this might not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's also, I think, one of the things that keeps most entrepreneurs from starting. They're thinking too big. They're thinking, oh my gosh, I need to create a product that I sell for thousands of dollars, or I need to sell this big consulting problem. And the way we created Focus Founders, and the way I created a successful real estate business, and the way I built my hotel company to success, my hospitality company, was from going for small wins from the get-go. So I think for a lot of people that are listening, or maybe starting a new company, that looks like calling a friend and saying, hey, like I'm going to make this thing. Can you pay me $100? Is this worth $1,000 to you? Whatever would be maybe a little bit less than what your product is worth, to just get to make sure that you have that product market fit from the get-go.
That's again more of like testing and see like the small wins leading to the big chunk of eating the frog then.
Totally, totally, totally. I think, and I've mentioned it before, but I think really it's just so important to get wins because it allows for growth, it allows for enjoyment, and it allows for progress as opposed to the perfectionist big approach. So absolutely, just like little bite size.
Yeah. I mean, I love that approach is because we want to like look for the big things and then we miss out on the small things. And then we feel like, oh, that is a big goal and we didn't achieve that. Let's pivot immediately. And then the entire spark is missed is because we fail to acknowledge the small wins or celebrate those small wins that were coming along the way.
Totally, totally. And as much as I talked about Steve Jobs going from 0 to 100, he and his team had a bunch of small victories along the way that are kind of ignored and overlooked. Truthfully, I don't believe, unless they had had all the small wins that led up to the iPhone, that they would have actually been able to be consistent enough to launch this thing into the marketplace. So I definitely think it really does come down to small wins and positive reinforcement from like a psychology perspective.
Like, what are the favorite authors that you read or like to understand psychology and how important it is for you to know psychology?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most important thing that anybody could learn because unfortunately, when we're born, we don't come with an operating manual for our brain. I mean, I wish we did, but we really just don't. And so I think a lot of, and this is really a core mission of Focus Founders, is supporting people and realizing, providing proper models and frames so that they can make effective progress and understand themselves so that they can make and build a business they love and a life they love. Yeah, I think that that's probably like psychology itself is, I mean, for me at least, it's the most fascinating thing in the world, which is why I've learned as much as I have with it.
That's brilliant. Is because you're working with humans, and as long as humans are going to stay on the planet, we need to know how they operate. Do you think whenever you have worked with people from different cultures or coming from different countries or like expanding your business, how has that experience been and how did that shape your identity?
Yeah, I think different cultures have different, and it's not good, bad, right, wrong. Like a frame I like to use is effective or not effective. I think different cultures come in with different beliefs that are ineffective and effective for building a business. So, for example, I was just talking and supporting a woman who lives in Bali. She was born in Malaysia. She was talking about how for her to go and start her own thing, it was a massive struggle at the beginning to be independent enough from her family to go and do her own thing and trust herself. In the United States, in my opinion, we actually have the opposite situation. We have the benefit of being hyper individuated, but we are, I guess I'll speak for myself here. I got to practice a lot on asking for support, working together in collaboration. I kept trying to do things on my own. So as you can see, you know, different cultures kind of have effective or ineffective beliefs when building and starting a company.
Yeah, the building in real time, it just changes everything.
Absolutely.
And being in this entire entrepreneurial space right now, what are the myths that you would like to debunk, which think people talk a lot about, but it is not what it looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I can really condense it. I think a lot of sadness and suffering is created by people who don't know um, why they're doing what they're doing. And so there's this idea that I'm broken because I'm depressed or I'm broken because I can't build a business. And the myth I really want to debunk is that this is stuff that's out of your control, stuff that you can't understand. I've absolutely had days where I've been depressed for months and been able to unable to get out of bed back before I gained a deeper understanding of self. Now, I don't speak for all people that are depressed. I'm just using that as a analogy from how I thought I was broken and ineffective and I felt useless, going to understanding myself, understanding my psychology, understanding why I feel and do the way I do, and then realizing that I'm not broken, that everything is operating exactly by design. So basically, I'd say the myth is not understanding or believing that somebody is not suited to something or is broken for not fitting into a particular mold. And the antidote to that is realizing uh, that there is always a reason for getting the outcomes I get, for being the person I am.
If I just try to analyze it, it has so much depth into it. Like, even if you are 100% responsible for your own situations, you need to understand this on an inner level instead of the external affairs affecting your surroundings.
Totally. I would say it's actually, to agree with you, I think it's very important to understand the internal, but it's as equally important to understand the external. And that's really what we support people doing at Focus Founders, because I believe strongly that internal and external factors together create the situation and the outcome. So, a lot of, just to provide a tangible example, like a lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, I want to build my business, but I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not taking the action I need to do. And then we discuss with them, and their day to day is terrible. Like they're alone, and they're working out of their bedroom. They're really not doing stuff that they enjoy because they're doing the nitty gritty stuff at the beginning. They haven't focused on the enjoyment of the thing. And so it's not so much that they're internally not calibrated, although that can be a part of it. It's more so that like they feel like they're broken internally, but it's because their external situation, their system, their environment that they created for themselves is like not enjoyable. Therefore, it's not effective. Therefore, they're not building the thing. And so that's another example of somebody maybe who's listening to this that identifies with that you're not broken. It's just a matter of understanding why you do what you do so you can create a game or like a container or a business that you can win.
That's beautiful. And also, to add on to this, which I could interpret, it's so much for anyone to realize that they need to get out of that autopilot mode. Like, that is so important so that they can analyze. Like, years pass and you're like, this was one thing that I was doing the incorrect way. But if you would have realized it then and there, probably you wouldn't have done that.
Yep, absolutely. And I'd love to potentially come on this podcast another time as well, because there's a whole discussion. One of the, I guess, another myth that I'll throw out there as well is that, and it's very similar to the first one I talked about. This idea that I will do something that I don't want to do, I think gets people really stuck. So a really good example of this is addiction. People go, oh my gosh, like I keep, I'm addicted to water, so I can't stop, can't
Drinking
stop
water.
drinking. And the shame actually gets in the way of discovering why that activity genuinely serves them. And what that allows us to do is take an opposite frame and realize, okay, if I'm doing something in my life, then it must be serving me at some level. It must make sense at some level for me to do this thing. So the idea of pushing entrepreneurs like harder, harder, like you're not enough, you just have to work harder and pushing people, I think causes massive pain. The same way that we tell somebody, hey, you're bad, you absolutely just need to stop drinking. Right, as opposed to getting curious and getting kind and being like, hey, let's remove the shame of failure in a company, or let's remove the shame or the stigma and really figure out like, why am I doing this? Because if I understand why I'm doing it, then I can create a game or a company or a system that I can win. And that feels awesome.
Absolutely. Gamifying the experience, I think, is the crux of it, which comes with even the accountability system that you mentioned, that it's so important with that. And the entire process, okay, you were at level 1 today, you're at level 2, level 3, level 4. Most of us want to go to level 10 without winning level, like the other 9 levels that you actually have to win to get to level 10.
Totally, totally. I think people that I talk to that have been an entrepreneur for more than a decade, like I have, start to shift from doing it for the reward at the end of it, for actually genuinely loving the process, falling in love with the fact that I get on a sales call and somebody yells at me, falling in love with the fact that like just this event we hosted, we had a great turnout together event that many people told us they had never seen before, which was combining business and play together in a deep connective way. And still, we had half the amount of attendees we thought. We had about 30 instead of the 60 that we planned. So we learned that for free events, turnout is lower than expected. And it's almost like I think people try to turn things into games instead of realizing that they're already playing a game, right? I've never been a huge fan of like the ticky tacky like apps that like, oh my gosh, like you did your chores, here's experience and stuff like that. It's always felt forced versus going like, wow, what are the things that I can reframe that are already game like in my life? Does that make sense?
It does. Actually, it does. It's like instead of me just, it challenges the concept of instant gratification as well. Like sometimes every level you won't be instantly gratified, but hey, this is chocolate for you, or hey, this is your Halloween candy. Do you want it? No, probably you won't get that candy, but you might get a big chocolate bar towards the end of it, or maybe like in somewhere 75% down the way.
Yeah, and man, I know we're close to running out of time here, but definitely would love to talk on that more in the future because external rewards actually remove intrinsic rewards. So trying to artificially reward myself for something will actually destroy the appreciation of the thing I'm doing itself that I've been talking about in terms of how to enjoy the day-to-day in a business.
Really loving this. Like we can talk about this for hours, but that also brings me to a small segment that we do. It's called as 7 questions to fame. It's a rapid fire view, which has 7 questions. So shall we go ahead with this round?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Perfect. So the first question looks like, what is a virtue that you have right now?
Joy.
Your 3 a.m. fear.
Wow, what's my gut instinct on that? That I'm gonna be trapped and everything's gonna be out of my control.
Yeah, like loss of it. I can feel you. What is the legacy that you would like to leave the world with?
People learning to love their brain.
I love that one. It's beautiful. How would you describe yourself in one word?
That's tricky. I'm gonna go with playful.
Nice. I hope this reaches out to the right audience.
Yeah.
And what is something that you would like to change in your life if you could go back 5 years down the line?
If I could, I don't really do regrets because everything has gotten me to where I am now. But if I was, let me see, I think I would have, if I could change one thing, I would have magically increased my humility. So I would have just, and I don't know that this is possible, but for the sake of this question, just gone back and given past me a slap to the face and been like, you don't know anything, learn.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. Who is someone you admire the most, like your role model?
Great question. Probably it's kind of vulnerable for me to say this, but I feel like probably the person I admire most right now is my friend Joe Bokoff. Him and I have, ups and downs and stuff like that, but I admire his ability to unabashedly be himself, like be 100% authentic to who he is. And there are times where I've loved that. There are times where I've hated that. But I deeply, deeply respect him and what he stands for.
I think we should tag him as well and be like, you are an inspiration. Take it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
And the seventh question is, if I take everything that you have right now, your money, the content, the focus founder, everything that you've built right now, the tags and everything, then what is the one thing that you would like to tell the world about?
Yeah. It's just you're not broken. Everything you do makes sense. Truly.
This is very insightful. Like, I really loved it. And most of the people, because we stay in the head so much that we just need to get out of it. And this line speaks to them.
Yeah, and I guess like the final thing I'll say is just like it makes sense not just in the head sense because we're more than just our head. We're our heart, we're our bodies, we're our environment, we're the people we surround ourselves with. So I think that's where people get stuck is they go, oh, why did I do that thing? Like I shouldn't have had this bottle of water. I'm addicted to this water. It doesn't make sense, but they're not. They're so identified with their head and not their heart and not their body and their environment that they're missing the things that make them make sense.
It's so true. Which brings me to a very amazing segment. Is it if I give you 90 seconds to teach me something? So, how would you go about it? Like 90 seconds and you have to teach something.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna use 15 of those 90 seconds to think. I would teach somebody um the scientific method as it applies to their life. So for example, Yukta, what's something that you are trying to get better at?
Do I need to answer this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm trying to get better at learning AI and automation.
AI and automation is beautiful. And this is how I teach. It's interactive. I feel like
Okay.
that works a lot better than just talking at people. What do you feel like your biggest problem of learning that is?
Fear of what if whatever I'm learning just becomes outdated is because the industry is expanding so much.
Yeah. There's actually probably a lot of truth in that fear. So I think the first question in getting better at something is figuring out what's in the way and then finding a way to move forward and learn. For me, and I like the Hormozy definition with this, learning is same situation, different behavior. So now knowing that and please let me know if this feels relevant or not. If you accept that fear, if you accept that everything you're doing right now could become irrelevant in a year, 2 months, how does that change your ability to learn with AI in the future?
I'm in this spot now. So I think if that happens, I would love to adapt more, learn more efficiently. Like, I think then I would just love to play with the speed. Like, if it's evolving, I need to evolve with the speed if everything becomes irrelevant, just because the fear of being irrelevant, knowing that you have untapped potential, is the worst fear I never want to face.
That's the worst insult I've ever received as well. You have potential. Beautiful. Okay, so what's in my final 30 seconds here, what's something that you can try that might increase the speed of your ability to learn AI?
Learn 2 hours, practice 2 hours.
Okay, beautiful. And how will you know, how will you measure whether you've learned more quickly or not?
By doing projects, like new projects, or maybe like taking like $5,000 from someone and being like, oh my God, now I have to do it. Playing the game of risk, I would say, that I know I've learned or not.
Yeah, yeah. So over time, you'll see whether you've done better or worse at that game.
Hmm.
Cool. So that is, in summary, that is how we get better at something with deliberate practice. It's a defining the problem, defining the thing we want to improve, defining how we intend to improve on that thing, and defining a way in which we get feedback on that thing. And if we run that iterative loop, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's AI, doesn't matter if it's drinking water. If you do repetitions and deliberately practice and get feedback, you will get better and better at that thing. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think since you asked these questions to me now, I'm actually thinking that sometimes we may not have answers, but we just need to ask the right questions so that we can figure it out. And that's what figuring out looks like so much. So I love like I love how you just ask the right questions and maybe we could figure it out together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what we do at Focus Founders. Is we don't claim, like, we work with all sorts of companies. There's a CEO I work with who's the head of this huge genetics company. I'm not lecturing her on how to run a genetics company. I haven't done it, right? I've done hospitality and I've done real estate. So yes, the business context helps, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's asking our clients the right questions so they get clarity and are able to prioritize, focus, and effectively build their companies.
This is actually impressive. And at the same point in time, I'll say mind boggling when you actually do it on the ground, because sometimes you might be confused. You do not know what to speak, what to do, what to not do, and figure it out on the go. But I love the insight and the impact that you're trying to bridge with Focus Founders. And I'm so glad that you could share this space with us today and we could learn so much from you. If anyone who would would love to get in touch with you or speak with you, how can they find you or where can they find you?
Yeah. I think really you'd just be joining our Focus Founders free community. We're really, really excited about building a community of founders that are exactly doing what you talked about, Yukta, which are getting started and hitting blockers. Right. Or even just, I ask myself, I pay somebody a bunch of money to ask me these questions as well. So I think it's a need that never goes away, the need to reflect, the ability to prioritize, get clear on what's most important, and focus on being effective. So we'd love to have people as a part of our free community. We work together to get unstuck, and then later down the line, if people want to work with us in a paid capacity, that's definitely something that we could talk about as well.
Wow. So I think let's retreat everyone to the school group on Focus Founders, and we would love to share the link with people so they can join in, work with you, get unstuck, and then go ahead, get on it. And with
Yeah.
this, Rex, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate all the inputs. It is still feeling that we have so much to discuss and discover and talk about, but that is something for season 2. And we would love to feature you once again and have an in-depth conversation. But for this time, thank you so much for being with us. It was a great episode shooting Founders Across Borders with you.
Thank you so much. Such an honor to be interviewed.
Thank you so much, Rex. Have a great day.
Thank you. You as well.